Okay, so my name's Emma Pickering. I'm the early years lead at the British International School, and I'm here with my colleague Zoe Casson, who is one of our early years teachers here. So welcome to this session. We're going to talk today about children's play and development and how children's play impacts all kinds of aspects of children's early development. And if I can just ask again that people turn their videos off. So if you've just joined us, please turn your video off. And keep your microphone off while we're presenting, just so that we can get a clear recording, because I know some people are looking forward to having the recording if they can't make the session this morning. Okay, so welcome to our workshop about play. We're really looking forward to sharing with you some of our early years knowledge about how children develop through their play. And if you have any questions, please keep your questions until the end, and we'll try and make some time for question and answer. And you can post your questions in the chat if you would like to, and then we can respond to those at the end. Okay, sorry, my slide is just not moving on for some reason. Try again. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. So this is a little bit of an overview of our workshop. First of all, we're going to talk to you about some of the things that make our earlier setting really special. We're going to give like a little bit of an overview of the kind of materials that our children play with and why we've chosen those in such specific ways. After that, we're going to look at some of the research into brain development and how that impacts children's play and development overall. We're going to talk about the different types of play. We've picked out some of the different types of play because obviously children have many different ways in which they play, but we've picked out 6 specific types of play that we're going to talk about. And we'll also touch upon how those things actually overlap in many different aspects of children's day. We're going to talk about children's conflicts as well, because in a play-based environment, it is very natural that children get into some conflicts with each other. So we're going to talk about that and just share our approach to helping children solve conflicts in their play. And then we're going to talk about play stories and play sharing. Now, this is something that's very unique to our setting in Budapest, these structures that we have in the day for children to reflect on their play and talk about their play in an in-depth way. And then we're going to share a few tips for you at home as well. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Zoe now, and she's going to talk about the key adult approach.
Thanks, Emma. So before we talk about play and we unpick and we understand what the play looks like, I just want to talk to you about the key adult approach and what this is. So in a school setting, the key adults would be the child's teacher and their learning assistant. And that relationship in our school, that relationship is built before school starts in our home visits. We feel that's a really important aspect of building up that key adult approach with the families and children. So we know that early experiences of love and attachment with children have lifelong benefits. The experience of being cared for by reliable adults who meets a child's needs allows that child to form secure attachments later on in life. And this grounding provides a secure base, and the children then feel confident to explore the world around them and form other relationships and attachments as well. The stronger the relationships are, the more supported the child and you as their family will feel about subsequent transition. So maybe the transition to year 1, key stage 1, and other new experience that they may come across later in their life.
Okay, so this is a little bit about our setting now, and a little bit about why we have chosen our setting to be a play-based setting, because there are many different types of early years settings, but we have specifically chosen for our early years to be a play-based setting. And one of the reasons is our EYFS curriculum. So the early years foundation stage curriculum suggests that play, both indoors and outdoors, is fundamental to children's development across all areas of the early years foundation stage curriculum. This early years foundation stage curriculum comes from England, and obviously we are a British international school, so we are following the curriculum for early years children from England, and that's called the early years foundation stage. And this was actually updated this year, so we have a very fresh document that we're working with to observe and assess children against this early years foundation stage curriculum. The second thing about our setting and why we've chosen to be a play-based setting is at BISB, we actually collaborate with an organisation called Angie Play. And this is a leading pedagogy for early childhood development. And Zoe and I have both actually been out to visit Angie Play kindergartens in China to see this approach in action. And we've just been so taken aback by the competence of the children that we've seen. We decided that this is the approach that we really want to take at BISB. It really is a leading pedagogy for early childhood development, and we're just so impressed by what we've seen by going and observing at those kindergartens, but also what we've seen our children doing since we began implementing this approach around 4 years ago. And then children have access to lots of opportunities for different types of play in our setting. So we've chosen materials that really facilitate play for the children, and we've chosen to set our environment in a way that really facilitates children's play on all types of levels within our setting. And I've just put the link there to the Angie Play website. And the reason I've done that is because that specific page that I've linked you to actually takes you to a parent guide. So you can actually go and visit that page and find out a lot more about what Angie Play is all about. And it's got lots of advice for parents as well within that page. So I just wanted to flag that up for you. Okay. So Zoe's going to talk about our outdoor environment now.
So the environment as a whole plays such an important part in early years, and Angie Play, as Emma mentioned, and with our own centre as well. So we know that children are unique, yet they're unique learners. Everyone comes to us with different personalities, different needs as well. And they thrive in environments that support their motivation, their interests, and their needs. Children's learning is best supported when they have opportunities that allow for movement and action, creativity and imagination, and independence and collaboration. The right environment will offer these children the engagement and opportunity, as well as the security and comfort. So first, we're going to look at the outdoor environment first. This is really important for us as an early years centre. It's something that we're really proud of as well. And as Emma mentioned, earlier, that the children are out in all types of weather as well, as you can see. The only restriction there is if they don't have the right clothing, but we do provide clothing as well. So the benefits of being outdoors is that it offers the children such unique possibilities to see longer distances. They experience the natural world, they're feeling the weather, they're hearing the sounds in nature, seeing the changes in natural light or maybe temperature, which we have done recently. There's also greater scope to engage in appropriate, energetic, risky and adventurous play. And I'm going to talk a little bit about physical play and risky play later in this presentation. Time outdoors benefits children's health and well-being and all areas of development and learning. We know as adults, if we go for a walk outside, we just feel so much more energized when we come back in, even in the colder weather. The first-hand experiences that the children have outside helps them to make sense of the world and care for the environment. So we have a garden where we grow vegetables and herbs, and through a sense of belonging and understanding, the children can become confident caretakers and problem solvers. Natural environments support children's imaginative play, and you're going to see some photos of that during this presentation. They also get to collaborate with others and develop their relationships with their peers as well. And also the outdoor opportunity offers much more of a chance to experience with larger scales, shapes, space and measures. They can be obviously noisier as well. In our centre, the children are free to move the resources where they want, use them how they want, and combine them in different ways to meet the needs of their play. This autonomy facilitates high levels of creativity, joy and engagement. When we as practitioners step back and we trust the children, giving them that freedom, we can observe really high levels of involvement and creative play. And you'll see some of this in our presentation.
Sorry. So next I'm just going to talk about our indoor environment. So as Zoe mentioned, we spend a lot of time outdoors and we do play in all weathers, but we also have a beautiful indoor environment for the children too. And when the children arrive at school in the morning, the first thing they do is they go into their classroom space and they settle down in groups or individually with some indoor play materials. And having this aspect to our day really helps the children settle into their morning routine. Our indoor environment is quite reflective of our outdoor environment in the sense that the materials are also open-ended materials. So these are materials that the children can use in ways that are suited to their play on a given day. In the background, you can see some children playing with blocks. Blocks are a really fantastic open-ended material, and I'm going to talk a little bit more later about the specifics of block play and how block play helps your child's development. And in the front of the picture, on the first picture, you see some children playing with a resource called Mobilo. Now, this is also a fantastic open-ended resource to really support your child's creative thinking skills. We can highly recommend this as a resource for home as well. And our children absolutely love to play with Mobilo, and they really are so creative and create many different things on different days. As well, in our indoor environment, we have some group times with the children. So, for example, after they arrive in the morning and settle down to play, we call the children, we do a little cleanup, and we come together for a group time. And during that group time, we will do some maths activities with the children. So the children are doing lots of maths-based activities based on themselves. So, for example, counting how many children came to school today. Or my class yesterday, we were focusing on subtraction because we have a number of children who are not in school this week. So we looked at subtracting those children. So we try to make the maths that we do with the children in those group times really meaningful and really focused on their kind of everyday learning and their everyday interactions. We also have a group time for our early years 2 children using our indoor environment for phonics. So our children engage in phonic development every day when they're an early years 2 child. We also spend lots of time telling stories. Children love to hear stories. So our indoor environment is used very much for storytelling, sometimes as a whole group, sometimes it might be 2 children that just want to sit down and have a story with you. So lots of storytelling, nursery rhymes, and things that really support children's overall literacy development, as well as the phonics, happen within our indoor environment. Something that I think is very special about our indoor environment is our art studio. So you can see a little boy playing in our art studio. Again, in our art studio, this is a very open-ended space for the children. So what you will not see from our children is children bringing home a specific craft that looks a bit like a cut and paste off the internet. You're not going to see that from your child. Your child is going to be bringing home things that they have thought about, that they have designed, that they have selected materials for. And we call this process art. So our children engage in process art, and it's much more about the process that they go through rather than the product that they make at the end. So you can see this little boy, he has chosen some open-ended recycled materials for his work, and he's creating a house. And then once he's constructed his house and used joining materials to fasten it all together, he's then able to paint that house all within the same art studio space. So this is a very open space where children can move from one area of the space to another, again, to facilitate their own ideas and use their own creativity to explore materials around them. Okay, so I'm going to talk now a little bit about the brain development. I think this is the part that I'm always really excited to know about. And we do, as a team, we do a lot of research on this, and we're really trying to ensure that our practice is a research-based practice. So your child's development is being supported by a research-based practice. So research into how the brain develops continues to highlight the following. The influence of a child's early environment has a long-lasting impact on the brain development. So this is their home environment, but this is also their school environment as well. In addition to this, the environment affects the number of brain cells, the number of connections among them, and also the way these connections are wired. So when I talk about the experience I just talked about from the little boy in the art studio, you can already start to imagine how his brain is lighting up and connecting through that experience. So that's one of the reasons why we've chosen a play-based setting, because in play, children's brain is just basically on fire while they're learning through play, while they're thinking for themselves, creating for themselves, selecting materials for themselves. That's really enhancing the development of your child's brain. The other reason that we've chosen play is because stress has a negative impact on the development of a brain function. And this is called cortisol. So when the brain is stressed, it is releasing cortisol into your child's body. So we want our environment to be as stress free as possible. We want our environment to be filled with joy. And as Zoe mentioned, the kind of things that bring joy are being outdoors, playing with friends, having the opportunity to move materials around and really think for yourself and be trusted by the adults around you. So we want joy and not stress in our environment. And I'm sure that's what you want for your children as well. And then self-determined play, indoors and outdoors, is really vital to children's social, emotional well-being and their overall development and learning. And that brings me to my next slide of information, where I'm going to talk about a particular researcher called Dr. David Whitebread. So Dr. David Whitebread was connected to Cambridge University in England. He has actually passed away just this year, but Dr. David Whitebread in 2019 went out to Anji in China. So he has also visited the site where Zoe and myself have been. And the reason he went there is because much of his life's work was around play and self-regulation. So some of his research has highlighted that play supports development through the relationship between play and children's self-regulation. And self-regulation is the child's ability to manage emotions and behavior in connection to the demands of a given situation. So you can imagine how important it is for children to learn these skills in self-regulation throughout their early childhood time. And what Dr. David Whitebread found is that play is a powerful context for the development of language skills and vocabulary, which in turn supports children's development of self-regulation. And he also found that children who attend play-based early years programs show higher scores on measures of self-regulation. So if a child attends a play-based environment over a more academic-based environment where the child is doing worksheets every day, for example, the child in the play-based environment is showing much higher scores in these abilities to self-regulate, because they're able to practice those skills all of the time throughout their day when they're playing alongside others, listening to others, responding to others in the moment. They're having to really think and focus on developing their self-regulation, and it's developing in quite a natural way within a play-based environment. Also, self-regulation has been shown to predict cognitive ability, academic achievement, long-term and emotional well-being. So children who have attended a play-based early years environment actually later do better in academic achievement. Okay. I'm going to hand over to Zoe now, and we're going to start to talk about some of those different types of play.
Okay, so these are the types of play that we're going to talk about. As Emma mentioned earlier, there are so many types of play we could discuss, but we had to really focus on maybe sort of the important ones for us here. So we're going to look at physical play, risky play, block play, exploratory sensory play, and dramatic play. And we're going to share some photos and give you a description of what that looks like in our setting here. Okay, so I'm going to look first at physical play and some lovely photos that I'm going to talk to you about as well. So physical play is vital for children's all-round development. Emma mentioned earlier the early years foundation stage, and physical development is actually one of the 3 prime areas there. So they have 3 prime areas, and physical development is one of those. So that's how important it is, yeah. So it's a fundamental building block for children to develop well, very important. And we know that providing opportunities for physical play, both indoors and outdoors, because it happens indoors as well, but not such a larger scale, there isn't such a bigger scope, you know, but jumping, dancing, you know, that's all physical. But we support children to develop their core strength, their stability, their balance, spatial awareness, you know, knowing what's around them, what their space is, coordination, and their agility. Physical gross motor skills, big muscles that helps to develop our healthy bodies and our emotional well-being, and also our fine motor skills as well, our hand-eye coordination, and that's later linked to early literacy as well. I'm going to cover sensory play a bit later in the presentation, but it's really important to note that physical play also helps to develop our vestibular sense. Yeah, so that's our movement, our gravity, our balance sense all around us. And this allows us to move smoothly. When we're able to maintain our balance in these activities, we can then be able to do other things such as, writing and using, sitting on a chair and being able to stand upright. So it's all connected. Children development is very holistic as well. So in the first photo here, this is a recent photo. You can tell that by the leaves on the ground there. What the child is doing is actually holding a large piece of ring, which is wrapped around a tree. And the child here is actually helping set up that swing. So that's a really important part, that we get that we don't set up the activities for children. We help children set their activities up, or they may even set them up completely independently. Obviously, this child here had to have a little bit of help, but he's involved in setting that activity up. So got ownership is really important. And also here, there was a little bit of science going on as I observed this. The child is pulling, and you might be able to see the other part of the rope there, which is down, that's going up. So he's actually working out a cause and effect. If I pull down this side, the other side goes up. So a really basic understanding there of pulley systems. The second slide that we've got here, we can see a child swinging, and, not on what we would call a conventional swing. She's not sitting on the swing. She's holding with her arms right at the top there. Again, really helps develop that tone of the arm muscles, the core strength as well. And all of that development will lead on then to being able to sit, to be able to doing that early literacy, to be able to manage fine motor skills as well. So as I mentioned before, really is linked to physical development there. So just some lovely photos of our forest trip that we do every week, different activities, not always using swings and ropes, but in this one, it was just a really nice opportunity to share some physical play with you. So I'm going to look at a little bit at risky play now. This is always an area sometimes that scares some practitioners and parents as well. But I want to talk to you about how important it is. It's actually a real natural part of children's play, and it's offered in our setting, both inside and outside. Although the outside does lend more opportunities for play, as we talked about before, there's more space to do this big outdoor risky play. Just want to define what risky play, what we mean by risky play first. So we define it as thrilling, it's exciting, and it's play that provides an opportunity for challenge. That's really important for children to have that challenge within. It tests their limits, explores boundaries as well. And within our setting, the teachers support the play. We provide the children with the areas where they can engage in positive risky play, and that's important that it's positive, and risk-taking opportunities, the challenges and excitement. So I've got a quote at the top there by Dr. Peter Gray. He's an American psychologist, researcher. He's known for his work on interaction between education and play. So I'm going to read it first, and then we're going to unpick it a little bit more in detail. Nothing in life is without risk. When we deprive our children of taking the risks that they must grow in competence, confidence, and courage, we run the greater and ultimately more tragic risk that they will never learn to take charge of their own lives. So what does that look like? So the first part, nothing in life is without risk. So even young children are taking risks, which learn to new learning experiences. So if you think about when a child learns to walk, when they start running, climbing, riding a bike, all of those activities are risk-taking activities. Now, look at the next part, taking the risks that they must take. So all of the activities that I mentioned, the running, the climbing, they involve some risk, but they are necessary for the development of children, and risky play is not different. So they have to do that. They have to take those risks. The next part, growing in competence, confidence, and courage. So success and failure provides children with motivation to try again. They work out different ways of doing something. They might try something, it doesn't work. They try again, they persevere, they are resilient. And that's one of the aspects that we want. We want children to develop a resilience. When we as teachers, when we observe the risky play, we see that it's incremental. So if you look at that middle picture there of the child climbing the climbing wall, that didn't happen straight away. It happened over time. First of all, I noticed that he was climbing a couple of parts, and maybe then the next time he's coming back and he's climbing a little bit higher as well. So it does take time to master a new challenge. But that's what children like about risky play. The excitement that they feel when it's finally mastered drives the child to engage in risky play. Yeah, so it's kind of like a challenge. They would, you know, they obtain it, they could do more on it as well. And then they master it, and maybe then they find another challenge as well. I'm not sure what the middle picture would be to develop more challenge there. But the benefits is developing self-confidence, resilience, as I talked about, risk management skills, what we call executive function abilities. And that's like their mental process, you know, it enables the children to plan. Yeah, so when they're doing risky play, it's not just doing it, they're planning it in their head, they're focusing their attention, they're remembering what worked last time or what didn't work, how they would change it. I recently observed a child climbing a tree, and his base was some reels, and when we talked about it in our play sharing, which Emma will mention later, he said, I realized it wasn't a stable base, so next time I'm going to use a ladder. So it enables them to reflect on it as well. I think someone might just have their microphone on. If you can just turn your microphone off for me, that would be great. Thank you. And then the last part of that quote I just want to talk about as well is never learning to take charge of their own lives. So movements that are often associated with risky play, such as climbing, sliding, balancing, rolling, swinging, jumping from heights, hanging upside down as well. They're not only fun for children, but they are also essential for their motor skills, yeah, for their balance, for their coordination, and their body awareness as well. And it's interesting to note that children who do not engage in such movements, and they fear these movements as well, they often feel really uncomfortable in their own bodies. And they feel clumsy as well. And that involvement in risky play gives them the opportunity to develop, you know, these gross motor skills as well. And just a little bit of research that I want to talk about, you know, because we do concentrate lots on researchers and learn from them as well within in our profession. So research from Bressoni backs this up, and she says that imposing too many restrictions on child's outdoor risky play may hamper their development and their health and well-being. So when we remove risk from play, or the restrictions are too high, you know, we see problems such as obesity and mental health, and, you know, lack of physical gross motor skills, you know, and enhancing and impacting on their fine motor skills as well. So although this does look risky, you know, it's very well managed within our setting. The children actually really understand the risk as well. So it's a really important part of their play.
Thank you, Zoe. Okay, I'm going to talk about block play next. I mean, I think you can very easily look at the photographs and start to think about some of the development that's happening in block play. I think the first thing that stands out from block play when you look at these photographs is children's understanding of symmetry. These are both block constructions that children have absolutely designed and constructed themselves. And you can see that the amount of problem solving that the children would have to go through in order to reach their goal to build these structures. The first structure is a more low-level structure, but still you can see that the children have really had to think about the shapes that they're using, how those shapes interact with each other and fit together. So lots of problem solving has gone into building that aeroplane that you see. The second picture shows a flying machine. And again, you can see this is a structure that's been built at height for the children to sort of climb on and be inside. And again, there's been a lot of thought from the children about their block selection. You can see that they've chosen on one side exactly the same blocks to build on the other side. So that would have involved lots of problem solving, lots of thinking together about how to build that structure and also how to make that structure sturdy and safe. So the children are learning a lot about problem solving, about shape, space and measures when they're building together with blocks. The other thing that children are developing when they're engaging in block play is their language, because they have to communicate with each other. It is quite rare, I would say, that I see children engaging with these big blocks alone. These big blocks really facilitate collaboration because children, they're heavy and children have to work together to lift them. So as they're collaborating, you can imagine the amount of language that the children are having to use to communicate about lifting the materials, moving the materials, where to place the materials, how to choose the different materials to come together. So there's a significant amount of language development that's happening within this play. And you can see in both of the photographs, many of these children are not English first language speakers. Many of the children in our setting have English as their second language or even as their third language. So these children are having to communicate in English together in order to develop their structures and in order to problem solve their structures. So language development is really key within block play. Something else that is really important in block play is children's creativity. So one of the aspects of our curriculum is around expressive arts and design. And in block play, the children are really touching all of those strands of our expressive arts and design curriculum. They are having to create, they are having to design, they are having to think, and then they're having to explain their processes to each other in the situation of building their block structures, but also later when we do our play sharing together and we show the children photographs of their play, they have to explain their processes, which is a really important aspect of our expressive art and design curriculum. But I think something else that's just really important about children's block play is just how it supports their self-esteem. You know, children's self-esteem is absolutely fundamental to their development. If children feel secure, if children feel happy, then they are going to learn. They're going to learn and develop when they're in a happy state, in a happy brain state, basically. And block play really brings children into that happy brain state. It gives the children confidence. So when they are building something together and they can step back from their structure, from their construction work and be proud. So this really, really enhances children's self-esteem. So this is something else that children are developing through their block play. But also scientific concepts. So they have to figure out how to make their structure sturdy and safe. So they're in block play, they're really touching on so many different aspects of their development that you would not necessarily realize just by looking at children playing with blocks. But because Zoe and I and the team do so much research around children's development, we've really found that block play is absolutely crucial, both outdoor with large blocks and indoor in the indoor environment with small blocks as well. So I think if you want to put anything on your Christmas list for children this year, we would just highly recommend a really good set of wooden blocks. I think it's one of the best resources that a child can have for their development. If I can just ask people that have just joined to please turn off their camera. Thank you, before we move on to the next slide. Okay, so Zoe's going to talk now about sensory play and exploratory play.
Thanks, Emma. So we actually have two slides for this one because we just couldn't choose enough photos. There were so many photos to choose from, we just couldn't choose the photos. So what we've got here is we've got some outdoor photos here. So let's just first talk about what exploratory sensory play is. So it's when children use all of their senses. They're examining objects by looking, by touching, by listening, moving them around as well. We talked about, you know, how children have the freedom. We've got these open-ended resources that they can move around. And what they're doing here is that they're exploring and they're testing concepts. You know, they may need to modify their ideas. They may have further questions that they ask of their friends or of their teachers as well. And this type of play can really contribute greatly towards their ability to concentrate. You know, they're focusing, they're very involved in this type of play. It prolongs their attention span. It also, you can see in some of the photos there that we've got there, we've got some group work, some collaboration work as well. So again, we've got those language skills that Emma mentioned previously. The first photo, we can see, you know, the vestibular, you know, they're working on their balancing as well and working out how many, you know, people, how many children, you know, it takes to make that block level. We've got a photo there of the sand. You probably can't see, but these children have actually got nothing on their feet. They're barefoot, which is a really interesting concept as well for sensory play. Barefoot stimulation enhances the connection between the foot and the brain, yeah, has lots and lots of benefits. And some children really like it and some don't. So, you know, it really will depend on the individual child there. We've got individual photos as well, you know, so sometimes, you know, this sensory play happens as a group, sometimes it happens as an individual, and that's absolutely fine. Got one at the bottom there of a child watering some herbs, some plants in the garden there. In the background as well, you can see that black sort of cylinder. That's actually our compost bin. We're really important for us as a school to approach for sustainability. So that's one of the things that we try to teach the children as well. And then we've got a picture there of one of our children looking in the clay. He's been adding water to the clay. He gets the magnifying glass because he knows that's really helpful for him to see up close as well. And he's looking at, you know, what's happened to the clay now I've added water to it, you know, the substance of it, you know. Later on, he may even put his hand in to touch it as well. So really deep levels of concentration in these photos as well. So if we move on to the indoor area, some more sensory photos, as we can see here. Now, some of these activities are a little bit more structured because they've required organisation to plan. So the first photo there, where you've got the children hanging up, looking, observing and examining the fruit, that was following a trip that I actually did with my class to the local market. And actually, when we walked into the market, we felt the smell of the fruit was just so lovely, really hit our senses just for that alone. We brought it back, the children were examining it, they were looking at it. We had a big conversation about how a pineapple looks very different from the outside to the inside. So it's really high levels of dialogue with the children there. And then you can see below that we were making some little fruit skewers as well. And the children there have got that independence. So there is an element of choice coming into that. She's cutting her own banana there to make a fruit skewer. Furthermore, we've got some listening activities, a little group activity in our inside area there, which is lovely to develop the sense of hearing, concentration as well. And the art, we talked before about Miss Rita, our art specialist, is there. And then the last little photo is actually Play-Doh, where the children actually made their own Play-Doh. So they're getting the whole sensory experience. You know, it's not an adult making it, they're involved in it. So there's some links to some mathematical concepts in there. How many, how much? If you add too much water, it's going to not be Play-Doh, it'll be very runny. Colour there, as we add some colour in, we can mix some colour and we can see what the result is. We're experiencing and examining, observing the changes in Play-Doh over time. And then the children are obviously playing with the Play-Doh. That child there is making a pizza, and he told me that he was adding pineapple on this pizza. And of course, then had a big discussion in our class. Who liked pineapple on their pizza? Should pineapple even be on pizza as well? So many activities are very interlinked, and you know, not just hitting one area of development, they will lead on to other areas as well.
Okay, I'm going to move on now to talk about the last type of play that we're going to talk about today. Like we mentioned in the beginning, there are many different types of play, and you will see your child when they are out and about in their world engaging in lots of different types of play. But this is the last one we wanted to talk about. And the reason we've saved dramatic play until last is because in all types of play, what we observe and what we know about children and how they develop is that all of their types of play actually have this dramatic play element. Now, one of the reasons that's been found for that is that because dramatic play really is linked to this development of self-regulation and executive functioning skills. So dramatic play is almost like the ultimate play for children. It's the most important type of play for young children, and they are engaging in it all of the time. And dramatic play usually develops somewhere between 3 and 5. So children start to engage in this type of play within their development somewhere between 3 and 5, and they start to play with others. So that's when they start to really get to know kind of more social play with each other. Up until around 3, children tend to do something called parallel play, where they play alongside others, but there isn't necessarily this social aspect to the play. But at around 3, children really start to develop their play alongside others, but more in a social way. And that's when their dramatic play really begins to develop. Now, in our environment, we have materials that are really able to facilitate children's dramatic play on so many different levels. You can see the 3 photographs. This is the same material. So in each photograph, children are playing with the exact same material. But this material, these giant polydrons, As well as you can see, supporting children's mathematical development, they're also supporting their dramatic play as well. And then you can see the first photograph. These two children have created their own mud kitchen. So it would be very easy to go out and look on Amazon and buy a mud kitchen for children. But that mud kitchen would only ever have one specific function and be a mud kitchen in your garden. So these children have been able to create their mud kitchen because we've given them the right materials that they can see and use in a way that suits their play on a given day. You see in the second photograph, they've constructed a boat. And what was really amazing about this experience is what happened was they built the boat at this size, which you see, and then some more children came to join the play. So they built an extension so that the boat could actually fit more children in. So they really had to problem solve together in order to facilitate the dramatic play that they wanted to happen within this boat. And then they were playing like a role play together, where they were role playing in the boat and they were driving the boat to rescue some cats. So you can really see the depth that children's dramatic play can go to when they are just given some open-ended materials where they can really think and create for themselves. And then the third photograph, these children have constructed a rocket and they're flying to the moon. So all of these photographs really, I think, highlight just how children are able to create and think for themselves and use different materials from all over our environment, ladders, steering wheels, the giant polydrons, blocks, whatever it is that they need for their play, they can take it and they can move it so that their dramatic play can really go into as much depth as it needs to for them on a given day. And again, dramatic play is really linked to our expressive arts and design aspect of our earliest foundation stage curriculum, because dramatic play fosters children's imagination, their curiosity, their creativity, and their critical thinking skills. It also enables them to experiment, so they can take on different roles. It allows to experiment with being a superhero, or being a cat, or being an astronaut going to the moon. So children really can imagine themselves in different roles. This imagining themselves in different roles helps them to see things from other people's perspectives. So dramatic play is really important in children developing their perspective taking and their ability to listen to each other's ideas and incorporate each other's ideas into the play. So it's a very important part of their development in learning to understand that people have different perspectives to them. Not everybody has the same perspective that they might have. So it really supports their perspective taking skills. Okay, over to you, Zoe.
Thank you. So we felt that we couldn't give you this presentation today without talking about children's conflicts and how we deal with them within our own setting. And if you've got more than one child at home, you might be really interested in as well on a home side for this. So conflict is defined as a challenge to the way a person thinks or behaves. It's natural, and it can be a daily occurrence in early years settings. And if you think about it, you know, adults have conflicts. So it's actually expected that children will also have conflicts as they grow and develop. So within our setting, we're there to guide and support children where necessary, but our goal is to make children independent and for them to develop the independent skills to resolve the conflict themselves. So we want to give the children, as teachers, we want to give the children the skills to solve it in the moment themselves. And they know, you know, using their kind words and their kind hands as well, and deciding for them to solve it. Now, of course, there are times when we have to step in and we have to, be there and actually do that with the children. But the play-based environment offers lots of opportunities for children to experience and resolve conflict as well. And these opportunities, they range from discussions that we have with the children. We talk about feelings. We've got a lovely book there that we've shared with you, The Colour Monster, which talks about, feelings of feeling sad, angry, happy, and that these feelings were really respected and valued as well. It's okay to feel mad. It's okay. That's an okay feeling to have. So that's one of the ways that we deal with children understanding their emotions as well, and also encouraging them to verbalize their feelings with each other and as a group as well. We also read books and social stories, which include conflict scenarios. We've got the one there, the cat and the dog. Very, very simple book, but with a really powerful message there about how we can help each other as well. And enable sort of that collaboration relationship, I think, to develop. We model obviously good behavior as well. And one of the really important aspects is praising children when they resolve conflicts on their own. So, we might spot a child and say, well done for helping that, or well done for, realizing that was happening. And that helps a child actually understand that conflict as well. So, it's a really important part of early years that the children need to go through. It's a passage that the children need to go through in order to grow and develop into adulthood. You're still muted, Emma. You're still muted.
Sorry, I had to mute myself because there was a big transition happening in the school for primary play and it was very noisy. So I do apologise, I muted and forgot to put it back on. So our presentation is coming close to a close now. But before we do, we really wanted to talk to you about two things that happen in our day. So the first thing that happens in our day, this is a structured part of our day, and it's called play stories. This is where every day the children sit down at around 2 o'clock and they draw a picture of play from their day. Now, this is always really insightful for us because we learn so much more about what the children are playing when we're observing them. So you can see the first play story. This is about a child playing camping and they're making the camping sausage. This is quite an early play story. So this is what a child's play story might look like at the beginning of their early years 2 year, for example. So this is from a child at the beginning of their early years 2 year. So you can see that there's a drawing. And then the teacher is annotating on the drawing the exact language that the children shares about their play. So this gives us a nice assessment tool to be able to see how children's language is actually developing over time. What happens for children as they begin to notice that we are writing their friends' names onto the play story? And then they begin to do this for themselves. So you can see the one on this side of the screen. Basically, this is a child. You can see that the date on that one is April. So this child is starting to develop in their understanding of how print carries meaning, and they're starting to write their friends' names onto their play stories. Now, Zoe and I were actually noticing the other day how this year, our children are actually already doing that. So those children who had an early years 1 year with us last year, that came to us as a 3 or 4 year old last year, they are actually already doing this. So it's really, they've noticed this all year last year. Oh, my teacher writes my friends' names on my play story every day. And they're actually already doing that. And we're only just going into December. And we've been seeing this in our children from around October, November time. So Zoe and I and the rest of the team have been really impressed to see that the children's development, this is actually happening a little bit earlier if they have their early years 1 year with us and they have that foundation from last year. And then you can see in the middle, the sample in the middle is more closer to the end of the year. This was a sample taken from a child in June, just before the end of that school year. And I'll read it for you because I have become very good at reading children's phonetic words. So she says, I was playing babies with Marissa, Lola, Daria. So she's now, at this point in the year, towards the end of the year, all of that phonic knowledge that she's been developing throughout the school year, through those structured phonics lessons, and through observing the teacher write on their play story every day, this child is becoming a competent writer with their own phonic knowledge. And that's one of our kind of ultimate early learning goals, shall we say, is that children can use phonic knowledge for writing. And by seeing adults write every day and model them writing to them every day, they just start to gain confidence. And it starts out as writing their names or writing a short label on their work, like cat or dog or boat, and then it develops into whole sentence writing for children. So we really feel that this is a very special aspect of our day. It is quite unique in Budapest. We don't know of any other school that is using something called play stories every day with their children. So I think it's quite special and unique to our school and to our children, and it really supports their communication and language development, their fine motor development as well, because they're having to learn to grip a pencil and markers and different mark making materials, and their overall literacy skill development is really supported through this daily strategy that we use with our children. And what we do for children is we really present them with quite a wide range of mark making materials. So for example, for our 3-year-olds, we have some like fat crayons, we have some egg-shaped crayons for those children who are still whole hand grasping, which is a normal part of children's fine motor development and pencil grip development. So we have materials available for them to use to support that really important part of their development. We also have triangular crayons and triangular markers available that begins to help children develop their 3-finger tripod grip as well. So we really think about the materials that we present children with to access their play stories, to make sure all children can access based on their current level of development with their pencil grip. And then I'm just going to move on now to the next part of our day that we also think is very special to our setting. So Zoe mentioned it earlier that we also do something called play sharing with our children. Play sharing happens very much towards the end of our school day. After the children have done their play story, they then transition on to do their play sharing. And this is where we come together as a group. So it's different to the play story. The play story is like an individual reflection on their play, where we question children individually and ask them questions to explain their play on a deeper level. Play sharing is group reflection. So we come together as a whole group and we sit together, we look at photographs and we look at videos from the day. So for example, this photograph might be something that's used during play sharing, and we would ask the children questions like, why did you need 5 cups for this play? And the children will explain, well, there was 5 children playing, so everybody needed a cup. And it's a really important part of our day where we can get the children to think on a more deeper level about what they've been doing. So it really supports the development of their critical thinking skills, their reflective skills. We call reflective skills metacognition. And metacognition is really thinking about your thinking. That's how it's described in simple terms. And having this play sharing opportunity really helps children to think about their thinking. We ask questions about their material selection, why they chose certain materials, the processes that they went through in their play. And we really get the children to kind of dig deeper and share ideas. It also supports their communication and language, of course, because they're having to engage in a group dialogue. And what happens is, for example, if these 2 children in the photograph are sharing about their play, they will give an explanation. The teacher will ask some questions, but also the children have the opportunity to ask each other questions. So the children develop their skills in asking questions as well. A very important skill that children need to develop in their communication and language skills is how to ask appropriate questions of each other. So this is a really enjoyable part of the day. What we find in our setting is that play sharing with the children actually brings a lot of joy to the children. They are all excited to see who's in the video today, whose turn is it going to be. And what we find is it as well as it bringing joy to the children, as well as it helping their communication and language skills, as well as it helping their thinking skills, it always also helps their planning skills. Because what we find is often the play sharing will end with a little planning session about what they're going to do the following day. So we often see children's play themes being extended across a week, or I've seen play themes and interest be extended over a fortnight or even a month, where the children continue to take the same play, but each day they're building on it and it's gaining depth and they're gaining use of different materials. So we really see how this enhances not just their play on that given day, but also their future play as well. And it's just a really joyful end to our day to share photos and videos and talk together and come together as a community. It's about being together as a class community as well and listening to each other. One of the things that the adults do in this situation is we're really modeling listening to the speaker and really helping children to develop their listening skills. And, you know, being an active listener means looking at the speaker and, you know, giving them our whole attention. So it really helps children's focus and attention as well. Okay, this is our last part of the session. We really hope that you've learned from us. We really hope that you feel you can ask us any questions at any time. We're always available in the morning before school. We're always available at the end after school as well. We're available on email if you have questions for us. And we're really very open to answering any questions you have about your child's play and your child's development. But we want to finish today, and I'm really sorry that we're quite pressed for time now, so we don't have a lot of time for questions at the end. If you do have any questions, please post them to us. Please post them in the chat box, or you can email us. You can also contact our admissions team if you have any questions, and they can direct those questions to us. But we are very open to answer your questions. But unfortunately, we are almost on the 10 o'clock mark today. So just a few tips before we say goodbye. Choose open-ended toys. You can see all of the toys in our environment are open-ended, and that's for a particular reason. Open-ended toys really enhance your child's development. Plan time into your weekends where children can just be on their own in their play, where you are more of an observer and not really a participant in the play. That self-directed, self-determined play where children are really engaging on their own is actually the best type of play that children can engage in. Visit forest spaces like we do. Like we see children's plays different in the forest space, where the forest really is their learning environment. The forest really is their play space, and the materials that are available in the forest are the things that are available for children to play with, and they really do play differently. They actually have to be more creative when resources are stripped back. And then limit screen time as much as possible. I'm a really big advocate for children playing with hands-on materials like blocks and limiting screen time as much as possible. Children under the age of 2 should have no screen time at all. Children over 3, they recommend around 15 to 30 minutes per day only. As children reach age 5, the paediatrician's recommendation is that they can have 1 hour a day, but this really should be high quality media, and where you're enjoying that screen time together. Watch a movie together, watch some songs and sing along together to those songs. So limit screen time, make sure it's high quality. Don't use screen time as a childminder, basically is our recommendation. There are so many things your child can be doing if you are encouraging this self-directed and self-determined play. And then finally, just really encourage your child to take the lead in developing self-sufficiency. Some of you will have noticed that your child comes out last at the end of the school day. And that is because we are making sure that children are doing everything for themselves. We are there to direct them and guide them if they need it, but we really are encouraging children to put their own shoes on, put their own coat on. And we are seeing our 3-year-olds who joined us just in August developing competency with these skills, and they are getting faster with doing these things for themselves. But the goal really is self-sufficiency. That makes children thrive. They feel so much pride when they do things for themselves. And then I just want to end on this quote from Miss Chung. She is the founder of Angie Play. I've had the privilege to meet her and learn from her myself, and just hear how amazingly she talks about children and their development. So she says, all of us experience a unique and important period in our lives that we call childhood, when we have an innate urge to understand the world, ourselves and others. Our brains are ready and set to solve and understand the new problems and relationships and qualities that we encounter in our experiences. For that reason, what we describe as true play, play that is self-determined and an environment of love, is actually the deepest and most natural form of learning. Nothing could be more important to the lives of children than the joy, freedom and growth that characterizes this kind of play. So the play that Ms. Chung is talking about is the play that happens in our environment, this self-determined play where children really think and engage for themselves. Okay, I would like to say thank you. Please do contact us with your questions. I haven't seen any questions pop up in the chat so far, but please do get in touch if you do have any questions for us. And just a big thank you from myself, big thank you to Zoe for presenting with me, and just have a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend.